Morning, everybody. I have another episode of Meet the Expert today from the Philadelphia UserCon, and I'm super proud to introduce David Stamen, who just joined VMware 4 months ago as tech marketing for vSphere, which is pretty awesome. Everybody will know you around the world. This is literally a video that I love doing. I've known you for a long time, mostly from Twitter and Slack interactions. I don't really know you as a person. So those are what these videos are about. And I love to start with, how did you get into IT? Like, how did you find out that you wanted to do this, and how did you actually get your break into it?
So my first time really dealing with computer, I remember sitting in like a bedroom with my dad, looking over his shoulder while he was doing something on the computer. And at that point, that's like my first memory with IT. And then I think I got my first computer when I was 13 for my own. And then just after that, started breaking everything apart, putting it back together. It was, I don't even remember what that machine. I remember I had a computer at home that was running 3.1. And so that was my first one. And then my own first personal computer, I think was couldn't have been XP. It was one of those older ones, but yeah, it's there. And then from there, I went to college, went into IT, and then pretty much started off help desk.
So what did you go in college? What did you major into? And did that work out as you thought it would?
No. So I majored in IT with a minor in criminal justice, because originally I wanted to focus on some type of forensic investigations and stuff, and in the end it just never really was where I think I always wanted to focus on the infrastructure side, and so that's what drove me to always be focused on VMware, virtualization, and all the infrastructure.
So did you get to know VMware right after college or in college? Or was it through like a first or second job?
It was through my second job, and after a promotion from within that. So yeah, so it was kind of one thing I learned and picked up. I originally was focused on Exchange and messaging, and then VMware came along, and I just ran with it.
Okay. What version was it?
First one was 4.1.
Okay. So you had the emotion, I think, at that point, and you had vCenter. And
yeah. First project was to upgrade from 4.1 to 5.0.
Okay.
And so that was a fun thing.
So, tell me about your experience, because most people that started with VMware, they began as Windows admins, and I think that's the path you took as well.
Yeah.
So tell me about your experience with the VMware teams as you were growing up in IT. Was it always like I'm a Windows admin with a side of VMware, or did you actually get to be like a full VMware admin at some point?
So when we started, it was kind of, I think in my role, we focused more primarily on VMware, but because we were senior level engineers, we kind of had to help backfill everything. Our primary responsibility was VMware. There was 3 of us, and due to some attrition, we ended up coming down to 1. To me, and then eventually we backfilled some of those positions. So for a while, I was the only person for a job. And
I think you've read or heard of the blog, The Lone Sysadmin. I think there's a lot of value when you're the only one and you have to understand how everything works, and you're invited to every meeting. So tell me about that experience, and I'll come back to it in a little bit with another question.
I don't think it was
how long was that period?
It was maybe a couple months. It wasn't too bad. I think the hardest thing was just losing a lot of the historical knowledge that came through. And I don't think it was bad being in all those meetings. I think it kind of helped get involved, and you didn't really lose information, right? So sometimes when you have 3 different people or 4 or 5 different people working on something, they all have different ideas. So it was a kind of a good way to both strengthen myself from a business perspective, because I had to completely understand everything in and out, not second guess myself, because I was making architectural decisions, design decisions.
You have to make decisions.
Operational decisions, and there was no one else to take the fall. It was all on me.
Yeah. So once you actually went away from that, did that experience actually help you think, oh shit, well, sorry, documentation is important, mentoring is important. What perspective did that come out and when you actually had more staff again?
Yeah, I think it was huge from a mentorship perspective. After that, when we brought people on, there's a lot of people we had like in our help desk or even our field support that really wanted to come up and do the infrastructure, and so they kind of wanted to follow the same path. So I was able to help guide them through that. When I went to work for a partner, the same thing too. We had an internal mentoring program that helped people get to that. And then even the biggest thing, right, the community is how can you help other people who may be stuck in what they're trying to do and they want to know how to get to that next step. And so I think that's what's been really key for everything, is not just what you know, it's who you know and how you can get involved with everybody. So that's really been the biggest jumping point in my career.
Let's talk vExpert. When did you hear about the program for the first time?
vExpert program, I think it's been 6 years, I kind of got thrown into the ring as a VMUG leader, which was the
Tampa?
scariest. Orlando.
So I totally forgot to let yourself introduce yourself. So who is David Stamen? Where does he live? How many kids do you have, etc.?
So my name's David. Was a leader for the Orlando VMUG, now technical marketing engineer at VMware, focused on vSphere upgrade. Live in Orlando, Florida, home of Mickey Mouse. 2 kids and a wife, and they're pretty awesome. A 2-year-old and an 8-year-old, so they keep me busy.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so before we talk vExpert, because you basically, as a VMUG leader, you get like thrown into it.
Yeah.
Let's talk VMUG leader. How did you get involved with VMUG, and how did you end up becoming a leader in Orlando?
So my coworker was the leader of VMUG, and when I was thinking, I thought it was going to be tons of work, overwhelming. I hated public speaking. I didn't want to do anything.
Look at you now, right?
Yeah, and look at me now. It's all I do. But I think it was like a huge thing is the best thing is he ended up working for a partner, and when you work for a partner, you can no longer be a leader by yourself. And he's like, well, no one else wants to do this. He was my mentor growing up, and I said, well, I guess I'm going to do it. And so from there, I was a sole leader for about a year.
Oh, so he brought you in and he left you?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
And so now our leadership's stronger than ever in Orlando. So it's been really good. There's been a lot of growth there. And so it's
it also comes to the point where, so did this happen before you were the lone VMware admin? Because now I'm seeing parallels, and like I had to take it by myself, but you know what? I brought someone else and I mentored.
It was in the path. It was like a huge transition. We had like a 6-month period where we lost a bunch of people, and so there was a lot of learning going on during that time.
Very cool. So that's how you got involved with VMUG, which is like, I've told some people, if you want to get involved with VMUG, the best thing to do is become a leader, because you learn so much more and you're so much more invested in it. So you went direct to the VMUG leader path. You went to vExpert. How would you define vExpert and the value that it's given to you?
I'd say vExpert, it's a very loose definition, right? vExpert is obviously people may assume that you're an expert in VMware, but it's not only being an expert, it's being involved and able to share the knowledge, and both from like training, mentorships, blogs, public speaking, podcasting, but it's also just being involved, right? You may not be the expert in VMware, but you help, I'm trying to think of how to say it.
Maybe be a connector.
Be a connector, bring people in, help people connect with other people, understand how to use their technologies, and kind of just do that. So it's really, I'll say the biggest thing, it's just community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I've always defined vExpert as, it's an award for people that help other people with VMware.
Yeah, that's a really good definition.
And it's super small. It really, that really can expand to a lot of interpretations, and that's cool about this flexibility. What value have you taken out of being a vExpert? Because typically the first year vExpert doesn't really interact much, but then I've seen you and you're everywhere.
Yeah, I think the vExpert program is what you make of it. There's some people who may come in there just for the recognition and they don't really understand all the benefits. It started off before you got a lot of access to NDA sessions, so you can kind of learn about the future, see what's coming, see how you can better help the VMware products evolve. The second year I think I did it, I was given a blogger pass to go to VMworld, so that was another huge thing. Unfortunately I couldn't go, so I had to hand it off to someone else. But it's just really the interactions. I would say the biggest thing that's been the most helpful was just the vExpert Slack, because there's other people like-minded in there where you can ask a question and you might have a response from either someone internally, externally, a partner, someone who's dealt with this in and out, and you can sometimes get your issues resolved like right then and there.
Yep. And as a customer, when I was a customer as well, I would just love going in there and seeing what other people were dealing with, because I learned just from reading the Slack every day, and I was super up to date on everything and every announcement. So yeah, I also think the vExpert Slack is one of the best things that program has.
It was really good to get ahead of the curve too, because people might be using similar hardware. It's like, hey, it may not even be VMware. It's like, hey, we just upgraded our storage and now we're having issues. So hey, I would hold off until we see something. So yeah, there's definitely tons of information out there.
Yeah, so we encourage everybody to, if you're a VMUG member, talk about how you can be a vExpert. And this brings me back to what I was going to ask you. Okay, so public speaking was the thing that you didn't like, right? It didn't come naturally to you. That's the situation for a lot of our VMUG members, that VMUG leaders are always encouraging the local community to come and present. What tips do you have for people for public speaking? Obviously, you've now mastered this.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that threw me off originally was maybe like a lack of confidence. and the hardest thing was trying to figure out something to actually talk on. And I think the biggest thing, if you want to get involved, is VMUG. It's perfect because you're not talking in front of hundreds of people. In a local meeting, you might be talking in front of 10, 20, 30 people, maybe a little bit more. But talk on something you know. Talk about an experience you just did. I think one of my first conversations I did is I talked about an upgrade. I think a lot of the stuff you're doing is vDocumentation, right? It's something you did on a day-to-day basis. So talk about something you're super knowledgeable about,
and
that you can
passionate
talk passionate about, and then that's kind of where you go. So I think it starts small. Another one is my very first one was vBrownBag, right? I was nervous as hell, trying not to go back and watch that video, but I learned a lot from just doing that. So I know people say that if you ever go and do a recording, don't go back and listen to yourself because you're going to be your hardest critique.
I actually when I talk to people and they ask me about these things, I actually tell them, well, to film themselves and look at themselves, because first the hearing your voice in another outside of your body is completely different.
Yeah, it is.
But you just pick up on so many little things that you do, right? And show it to, like, first of all, your biggest critic, yourself, but show it to your wife, and she, oh my God, she gave me like up, down, left, and right? So no, I'll find the video where you did a tech talk, and I'll post it here just so people can see it. No, because one thing that people forget, when you come down to VMworld, yes, we're in a circle where everybody's submitting to VMworld, hoping that it gets approved, and we know that it's hard, and 1 in 10 get approved. I think that number may be even slimmer now because we've gotten more sessions. But there's the vBrownBag stage. There's now the VMware Code stage. So there's a lot of opportunity to talk, even if it's a 12-minute or 27-minute talk. It's still very, very welcoming. We're very welcoming as a community to new speakers. All right, so tell me about your job. What are you liking about it? What have you found to be interesting?
I think everything is. I think the best part of it is pretty much our role is Nigel, Hickey, and myself. We've been traveling all over the U.S. and we'll be branching out to Europe coming up soon. But we pretty much go around talking vSphere upgrade with these workshops, and it's very interesting to talk about because each city there's a different focus point. Sometimes some cities, like for example, when we went to Florida, almost every conversation revolved around SRM. When we go to other cities, it's a lot of automation and orchestration. So I think it's really interesting to kind of see the paths of how the technology is used differently in different geographical regions and different cities, the different people, the different use cases. So it's been a huge learning experience that has definitely brought me outside my comfort zone. And I think Cody had a good post on stuff recently, and it's
Cody Darkland?
Yeah, Cody Darkland.
Awesome post.
He just had a post about stuff, and it kind of brought you out of your mind. It's like, I kind of had a huge culture shock coming into this role because I come in from like an administration role where I thought I knew everything, right? A lot of people do that. And then coming in here, realized it's kind of you thought you knew everything, but there's still so much to learn. So I think that was the biggest thing to get used to and understand. And I think now I'm falling into that. And I think it's kind of helped me grow a lot more recently too.
So when people ask me how because I joined VMware as a TAM a year ago, I always tell them, see, this is the VMware portfolio. I was really good like at 3 things, but now I need to know everything, at least to a 200 level, because people are asking me like, I know everything, and truthfully, you don't, but you just have this amazing internal network of people to ask and find somebody who's an expert at something. Question for you, since we're talking vSphere upgrades, do you get a lot of people that tell you, well, I just bring up a new vCenter and I move everything there, and that's it? Or, it's a fun little thing because whenever I've heard of problems with upgrades, it's it caused a problem, and now we had all these things. So what do you find people prefer? Do they prefer the upgrade process? Do they prefer building a new one?
I think it really depends on the use cases. We've matured a lot of our tools, such as the vCenter server migration from Windows to the appliance. And for that, rollback's simple, right? Is if you have an error, you just shut down the appliance, power back on your Windows machine. It's a very simple rollback. I think some people may not completely understand what the precautions are, and that's why we're doing these workshops, right? We're getting better in training. So I think a lot of people used to do the whole rebuild because that's just what they did. But I think now that people are understanding everything that's around, I think a lot more people are doing in-place upgrades versus parallel upgrades. And it's easier and better, so.
All right.
I think that's a good thing is if people are doing the parallel upgrades, it may be because they're doing a hardware refresh and it makes sense. So I think it's more of like a knowledge thing, and that's what we're trying to get out there and educate people on.
Yep. So tell me about something that you're really passionate about, and we'll probably end the interview there. Tell me, like, we've talked shop, we've talked IT. Tell me about your hobbies. I want to get to know David a little bit. I want somebody to go like, oh, I like that too. Maybe I'll reach out to him, and how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, I think as far as hobbies go, I used to be a big cyclist, so I would always go and do charity rides and all that stuff. And it's dropped off, so I think that's kind of been something I really need to focus on again. Just getting out there, and for me, cycling was kind of just getting out there on the road, being out there for, if I did a 60, 80 mile ride, I'd be out there for 3-4 hours in the silence and that. So that was something I was passionate about. But other than that, I think my biggest thing is traveling, right? Is before I used to always want to get around, and so previous company was based in Europe, so I'd always go out to Europe and explore. Now in this role, I'm getting out and traveling a lot. So I think I've picked up tons of tips and tricks, and I think I might actually do some blog stuff on it, just because a lot of people are saying, like, how do you travel there? Like, I came for this trip in just a backpack, right? I go to Europe, I went to San Francisco for 5 days in a backpack. Some people drag like these huge luggages, and it's like, yeah, so I think travel, it's hard to be passionate about some things, right? I think
once
really
you become a family man, family is a big number one with.
So kids soccer, ABCs, it's hard.
Okay, so one tip for the the weekly traveler.
Weekly traveler. I don't know.
Because I've always heard, like, don't check your luggage, use a carry-on.
I always carry on, never check your luggage, but I think the biggest thing is keep an extra set of chargers and cables that you only use for travel, so you don't have to worry about keep pulling it out.
Oh, that's a good tip.
And it's a small investment.
I've done that. I've forgotten the charger, or I've left it at a hotel, and it just sucks. That's a great tip. All right, how can people reach you? I know you have a blog, right?
Yeah, so my blog's davidstamen.com, or you can find me on Twitter @davidstamen.
Okay. Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking your time to show everybody who you are.
Awesome. Thank you so much.